All right, Peter, we are live for this week in the job market. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. But we're not going to just start with this week. We're going to go backwards to go forward. We're going to talk about the jobs report that came out last week. Did you see it?
I did. It kind of feeds in nicely, and I know we'll talk about this later with our Four Corner survey. So I'm glad you're starting off with that.
Yeah. So here's the problem: no one believes the numbers. The BLS put out a jobs report, said that we added 178,000 jobs, and nobody believes it. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think that I'll say lately we have had a lot of distrust in official sources. So especially with, what was it, months ago when there was that huge variance that they had to correct. I mean, that's happened now multiple times, but I think people are definitely skeptical, we'll say, of the official numbers.
Yeah, well, all right. I have the numbers. I've looked because when I post videos about this, I get everyone saying those jobs aren't real. That's not true. Of the last 24 months, how many times have the job numbers been revised by the Bureau of Labor Statistics after the fact? So they put out original numbers and then they revise them quietly at the bottom of the report. How many times in the last 24 months have they revised them?
I'm going to guess 3 times.
You're way off. You got to go higher.
Let's say at least. I know of from talking to a couple of managers that there's been at least 6.
You're still not close. You have to stretch here. You have to come on. It's the government we're talking about. How many times have they revised the numbers?
It can't be every single one of them, can it?
It is not every single one, but you're still not even in the ballpark.
Well, I mean, 7 of them have been, I feel like, really bad.
All right, we're gonna burn through the whole show doing it this way. 22 of the last 24 months, they have revised the numbers after the fact. And guess how many times they revised them upwards?
0.
2.
Now, there was, it's funny that you say that because I was just talking to my father this past weekend, and he was like, well, I only saw on the news that there was 2 or 3 revisions, over the last year or so. So why isn't it being covered?
Why do you think it's not being covered, right? Who sets the narrative of all this? The administration puts these numbers out. They boast about them when they can, right? So we just added 178,000 jobs in March. That's the headline number, and everyone's supposed to celebrate. But then quietly at the bottom of the BLS report, which is where I go first now. I don't start at the top anymore because
now that you've seen it, you're like, go to the asterisk at the bottom.
I go to the bottom. That is a much more interesting number. That's the one that is true mostly, right? Because what happens is once a year they revise them again, and that's what happened. I think that's what you were referring to a minute ago, where they revised down the 2024 numbers by, I think, 800,000, something like that. So here's the thing. What I also find, I won't say amusing because this is serious stuff, and it's not good that it happens. But everyone now says, Trump administration, don't trust them at all. And when I was posting this a year ago or a year and a half ago, everyone would say, the Biden administration, we don't trust these numbers at all. But when you look back at the last 10 years of revised BLS data, as only I have probably, because why would you want to look at that? You find that this has been going on a long time. This is just what they do. And I don't think it's dishonesty and deception as much as it is disorganization. I think it's the federal government we're talking about here. No one should be surprised that they're not very efficient.
Yeah, that's what whenever I hear people that say, like, I don't think it's a big conspiracy theory. I think it's the simplest explanation is usually the right one. And it's just that people are disorganized and it's a group of people.
Well, it's the federal government is just not efficient at what they do, and they put these numbers out. They try to hit a date that they've committed to in advance, and then they don't have accurate data. I mean, that's what they claim anyway, and I think that's mostly true. But I do think there should be more accountability for the corrections. They should talk about those, so we really know what's going on, because companies make decisions based on these reports based on this data.
Yeah,
And
I think that if they were more forthcoming about it and saying, hey, we can get it most of the way there, but we're going to come back, we're going to correct it, and we're going to have accurate numbers after the fact. These are the real numbers. I think people might, and maybe that's the issue from the people I've talked to. They're like, well, I don't trust it because they try to hide it if they were more open and they said, it's a data collection process, it takes time, we've got to do X, Y, and Z, maybe I'd trust it more. And that seems to be kind of the overall theme of the people I've talked to, at least.
yeah, no one trusts them at this point. But for anyone listening, I do want you to know it's not tied to any specific administration. Don't trust.
Some things never change. This is a constant.
Now we do tend to rely more on the ADP data, right? Because ADP is independent. They base their data on actual payroll numbers that they have as the largest payroll company. And they said this week in their weekly update, or their most recent update, that we added 26,000 jobs. So that's a good number. I mean, I think people, in a week, right? So do we trust that more because they're private?
Well, they are a payroll company. So I guess they have a little bit more of the perception is that they have a little bit more of a reason to get it right initially, and they don't have as much leeway as the federal government does. So right, wrong, or indifferent, most people seem to think that the ADP is a little bit more accurate.
Yeah, that's what's going on. So far, so good in the year. But here's an interesting report that came out this week. I'm not sure if you saw this. Let me ask, what do you think a successful job number would be for a month? How many jobs do we need to add? There's a historical number that everyone has sort of pointed to as deciding whether it's a good month or not. But what would you say that number is? So we just added 178,000. We lost 133,000 in February, so that's certainly not good. But how many a month do you think we need to have to consider it a thriving economy?
I mean, shouldn't it be around 100,000?
So historically, 150 to 200 is the number that everyone looks to. Okay. But the Fed posted, again, quietly, because this got no press. And the only reason I saw it is because I looked at the Fed's website to see this data, but very little press, where they said the economy needs essentially 0 new jobs each month to be okay. How crazy is that? Like no one would have seen that.
I guess they're then saying that there shouldn't be any loss. Is that what that's meant to mean?
Well, it's due to declining workforce and the stricter immigration policies. That's what it is. So it's not. So we have less people in need of work. But who do you think who's in the job market right now would find comfort in that? Right? No
yeah. They're saying that the working population is shrinking, so that we don't need to add any more jobs. We've got too many jobs, in fact, if we're adding effectively.
And so what's happened is when you look at the data, you see that we have too many job seekers in the wrong place right now. And we have too many openings where there aren't enough people to fill them. And those are primarily in skilled trades, where there are more people leaving the workforce who are qualified to do many of those jobs than there are people entering it. And that is I'll say it's a problem now, but it is certainly a problem that is going to grow over time. I mean, this is and it's a bad thing. Like we're in trouble. We're not going to have enough tradespeople in the very near future. Good luck when you need a plumber or an electrician at your house, because they're not going to be available.
Are you seeing that that's location based, or is that kind of just an all over?
Oh,
because you can think of a small town that that you hear the factory closed or something, so people are displaced from that, but there are needs in another area, and those people aren't willing to move across the country. So is that kind of what you're seeing?
No, well, this is really tied to a couple of things. So we have education bias that has existed for at least one generation, maybe two. I'd say probably two.
It's been my whole generation. So
yeah, my generation. So you're in between, right? You're a millennial. I'm X. My kids are Z. And it certainly has existed predominantly for Generation Z. Now, the new generation Alpha, I think, is changing. It is changing. We've seen data on that, where parents, even for students who are strong performers in high school. So the way it's been historically, of course, is if you're if you're a good student, if you're a decent student, you've been told go to college, right? That's what's expected of you. That's how you're going to secure your career professionally, your life financially. That has been the default answer for certainly exceptional students, but even decent students. And so it was seen as a bad thing if you didn't go to college. My generation, your generation, Gen Z. And so we have all these students who go to college, and the data overwhelmingly says that kids choose degrees that they think are going to provide security for them on the other side of that college degree. So they choose business degrees, generic business degrees, which effectively qualify you to do nothing specifically in the real world. And there's more people coming out of school looking for those jobs than there are jobs available. That is happening right now. And so that's where so many frustrated young people exist in the job market, because the demand isn't there. Meanwhile, the trades jobs where there's great demand, and we'll talk about why in a second, there's not enough people going that route to fill the opening. So it's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, that's been an issue that I've seen time and time again, where people are just told go to school. And I think it's not even necessarily that everyone has said you have to go to college versus not. It's that historically, from what I've seen, trade schools are just not advertised as much. There are a lot of people that I've talked to just over time, candidates, and they're like, I didn't even realize that trade schools were an option, or that apprenticing as a trade was an option, because it just, not that anybody discouraged me from it, but they just didn't know about it. They didn't know that there was one in their area, or until it was like they had already gone to college or something like that.
Well, I can tell you, my wife, who I'm sure is not listening right now, would have said it was not be at all pleased if I had encouraged my kids to go in a different route, right? Because that's just, again, wasn't the default thing. And so you see high school counselors, the high school where my kids have gone, tell you before you even enter as a freshman, they put up on a screen, here's all the colleges, so this percentage, 98% of the kids go to college, as if that's the marker by which they measure success, where we now know is not at all the marker you should be using. So we have that. We have this education bias that's existed. We have an older generation who's retiring. So many people who are 55 plus have pulled out of the workforce early. We know that has happened too. A lot of people didn't come back after COVID. And now we have people in skilled trades retiring faster than they're being replaced. And it's not like you can just show up tomorrow and be a qualified electrician. You have to go through an apprenticeship. You have to go through years of learning. And we're in trouble. It's not good. It's not a good situation.
That's what I'm getting, like that training that needs to be on the forefront of these, trade schools. It's just a lot of these apprentice programs, the way they're set up is kind of an antiquated way that it requires a lot of time. They're not good at onboarding. They're not good at recruiting for students the same way that a college is. I mean, colleges have entire recruiting departments, and I'm not even going to get into like people going because of sports teams, about the, seeing all of that. But I have lots of friends who are in the trades, and they kind of just fell into it, or their parent was somebody who was in it and they knew somebody, and it was a networking type thing. Nobody that I know like just decided it because they didn't know it was an option as a kid. It's always kind of been somebody, and so you go into it.
Well, we're going to have a difficult time bridging that gap, and there's really not a good solution for it. One thing we haven't talked about right now is the increased demand. So we already had a problem, a trending problem, where people were retiring, not enough young people were entering skilled trades, and demographically we're going to have an issue. And now on top of that, we have the AI data centers that are being built, and they are sucking up all the talent in that space. So you asked about people migrating from a small town, or is this a geographic problem? It's not that as much as it is just supply and demand. And the demand right now is being sucked up by the data center construction. So that's why we see construction numbers high. Right? There's really only two sectors that are driving the whole market right now. Back to the jobs report for a minute. Healthcare was 76,000 of the 178 that were added. However, most of those were due to a physician's office strike that was in place the month before. That caused the February numbers go down artificially, so to speak, and then they artificially inflated
back, yeah.
last month. So that's what's going on there. So healthcare is driving the entire market. Without healthcare for the past year, at least, the numbers would be, well, the numbers have been dismal, but they would be significantly worse. And then construction. So the AI boom, and whether we could talk about, I don't know how much we'll get into it today, how much AI is affecting the job market, but in that particular space, and the David Sachs, who has been the AI czar, although I think he recently had to step out of that role, he has loved saying how AI is creating jobs specifically because of construction. Well, yes, it is construction in a very roundabout way, right? The AI is creating a need for—
Once those are built, the jobs go away, though.
Exactly. Now, the good news is that's okay. Those skilled trades workers will have plenty of opportunities, but right now that is artificially increasing the demand there. But anyway, it's a challenge. It's going to be not a good thing for our country over the next decade, maybe longer.
Yeah, we're definitely in a transitional or going into a transition. I'd say we're already in a transitional period for jobs. Like you said, healthcare is really the only one that's kind of constant, and that's feeds into people retiring, the general population getting older. That's an area where it's never, people are always going to get sick. So that is an area that's a little bit more resilient, I think, than some of the other ones.
All right. So before we move on, we have a comment on this, and it is small on my screen. Can you read it? This is from Brian. It says, one thing we see as well as a trending habit of people wanting to earn more for less work. Well, don't we all? I mean, right? I want to earn more for less. I mean, but yes, I don't want to go. I'm not a boomer. Okay. I'm solid middle of the pack Gen Z. Let me make that clear. But I can sound like an old man when I talk about work ethic and having to start at the bottom and work your way up. So I agree with that. I mean, look, we're in a world where instant gratification is a thing. So it's natural, or shouldn't, maybe not natural. None of it's natural about phones and the internet and how that's impacted our lives. Far from natural, but it certainly is to be expected that instant gratification would carry over to your professional life, right? Every aspect of your life. So what does he say here? Let's say,
I think that
trades are turning back into a trend for the amounts of money people are realizing they can make in them. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's
a really
no
good point.
question.
Yeah, that shift it's still new, and it's not going to be solved for a while. But it's definitely that is something that I see in my personal life. I've seen lots of candidates that have kind of made career shifts, and they're like, oh, maybe I should go back. Now, I know we'll get into this, but how do you, something I worry about is as that shift becomes maybe more and more prevalent, people are talking about, oh, you can make so much money in the trades, you can do it like this. So what about when there are lots of people that are making the shift and the supply, is becoming, higher and higher and higher? It's going to be great for people who are already experienced, who are already in there. But when you are competing with 15 other apprentices for an entry level trades job, that's where I kind of worry about that. We're going to have a kind of glut of people that are trying to go into the trades. It's great for anybody who is experienced, for anybody who's skilled in a specific, and they are going to be able to name their own price. But yeah, there's going to be some friction, I think, as people try to get into it. Same with really any entry level.
Well, look, the market is shifting in multiple directions right now. So we're seeing, of course, everything we've talked about with skilled trades, and then AI's impact. So Boston Consulting Group put out a report this week that said 55% of jobs will be impacted by AI. I think that's probably low. I think it's closer to 100%. But what was alarming to me from the report was they said 10 to 15% of jobs in the next 2 to 3 years could be completely wiped out. And when you run that math, right, if you think, okay, we have around 170 million people in the U.S. workforce right now, 10%, that is devastating. If it's on the low side, and it could be higher, but even a couple of million jobs displaced in that short of a time frame, it goes by in a blink.
And I know they had talked about entry level specifically in that report, where they said 61% of the roles that were going to be replaced were going to be considered entry level or associate level. So it's going to be a very interesting, I'll say, to be positive on it, but I think it's going to be a rough time for a lot of trades. And it's going to be, people are going to need to be willing to shift into other adjacent maybe careers. And I think, like they said, you said it's going to be 100%. I definitely think it's 100%. They say reshaped. I assume that means significant changes to the job.
Augmented, right? And that is going to have so many different meanings by company, by position type, by industry. I mean, this is certainly not a one size fits all scenario that we're entering into with AI. That I think we're solidly in right now. I also think that doesn't get enough press, where we see what big companies are doing. So everyone's seen the layoffs by now so far this year. Meta very publicly, Block very publicly laid off 40% of their staff. So we see these big companies in the announcements, but what doesn't get any press, because there's no path by which you would announce these things for small businesses. Small to medium businesses are adopting AI at scale. They're doing it rapidly, and they're doing it quietly because there's no outlet to report that information. So my strong belief is that this is happening with a lot more frequency and volume than is getting reported right now.
Well, do you think, I don't even necessarily know if it's in a lot of companies going to be massive layoffs, as much as just going forward, they're just not going to, where they would have hired two people, they'll hire one person. That's not going to be reported. It's a lot more of a murky number to kind of see, especially like you said, in small companies.
Well, and so many people are skeptical of it. They don't think it's happening at all. They say, well, these companies are just AI washing. If you haven't heard that term.
That's what I was going to ask you. What do you think about people that say, well, the company's saying, they blame everything on, we're laying off people because of AI, whereas in the past they would have just said it was because we had a bad quarter or something.
Right. So the perspective on that is it's just being used as an excuse to cut. No one's going to get upset if you say you're doing it because of AI, because that's what you're expected to do these days.
Yeah, because then their stock goes up because there are other companies doing well while laying off people.
And these are companies who are making a lot of money right now while they're announcing these layoffs. And we're not used to seeing that. Usually these cuts happen when companies are stressed financially. And so I would say it's about a 50-50 split. What isn't these days in our country, right? Where half people out there think they're just saying that, but it's not really because of AI. And listen, that's not my perspective. I think that's a really dangerous view to have right now, to believe that this is a temporary thing. It's anything but. This is only going to pick up speed, and it's happening so rapidly that, I mean, many, and I'm included in this, can barely even keep up with the state of progress right now.
Yep. And, and I know Brian had commented again, basically saying that that's what's happening. The entry level is kind of what happened in cybersecurity and IT, because it became the hot direction, and that now people are struggling to find entry level roles in it because everybody was like, cybersecurity is the thing. And it's becoming difficult because there's so many people getting into entry level IT.
Yeah, I mean, this hits close to home for me because of my son, who is getting his master's in cybersecurity, where he has told me that his class at UCF, that they're struggling to find jobs, struggling to find opportunities. And so you see the press. I mean, I just saw a report last week that was saying how cybersecurity for entry level is absolutely the way to go. How many companies out there are hiring entry level for anything right now? And that's also affecting the job market for young people getting out of school. Going back to that for a minute, where the jobs that are easiest for AI to replace are low-level positions that require a lot of repetition. That's where you cut your teeth. That's where you start off. No one gives you great strategic responsibility from day one when you start off in your profession. You start at the bottom. At least that's how it's supposed to work and historically has. And those are the roles that AI is replacing. So we have this compounding problem, which is going to lead to even more problems in the future, because
I feel very strongly about that. That's how do you get people who can make judgment, that can do these advanced things, if they never spent the time doing the repetitive stuff that, you can, yeah, sure, it's great to replace AI. But what about in 10 years when you have no, you replace all of your paralegals or entry level law people, and they've never, how do you get an experienced lawyer if nobody ever spent any of their initial time working through it? It's going to be crazy to see. I'll say that.
Yeah. So here we are. We're at the beginning of Q2. Let me ask you to make a prediction here. Mm-hmm. What do you think the job market is going to look like as a result of AI by the end of this year? So we have just under 9 months left.
So I think in this year, I'll be optimistic. I'll say that there's not going to be any major upsets in the next 6 months, but I think we are going to continue on this trend where companies are just going to hire less. I think that the jobs numbers will go down, but I don't think it's going to be dramatic enough that anybody's going to be sounding alarm bells. That's kind of where I see that. I'll hedge my bets a little bit.
So I say by the end of this year, it's going to be so prevalent that we're going to see the federal government try to step in. And that's already started, right? If you saw a report that came out, I think it was about, a month ago, maybe 6 weeks now, someone wrote on Twitter basically a warning of saying this is more impactful than most people realize. It was supposedly written for family and friends. It was a really interesting way of describing the impact that AI is having, how effective it is, and what it's going to do to the job market in the very near future. And this thing blew up. It had over 100 million views on X. And immediately after, Congress started weighing in. And that was the hot thing that week, where they were talking about, we need to step in and do something about it. We need to prevent this. Well, the train has left the station.
It's going to be interesting. How do they plan on doing that? And, I know we haven't gotten to it yet, but I want to talk about our survey a little bit, just because that was a specific area where we saw that when we were asking people about if they thought AI was going to be a problem or affect their job, it's the executives who are actually the ones who are the most threatened by it. They were, 2.5 times more than anybody else. They were the people, and maybe that's because they're paying attention to all of this. So you've got the people who are up there and they're like, I see this coming. Entry level or maybe a little bit more in the trenches, so they're not realizing it as much.
So the short answer to the Congress thing is I have no idea, but they're going to try. And that's my prediction between now and the end of the year, is that the job market continues to struggle. We have a lot of external factors going on right now that aren't helping, right? Between the tariffs, whatever the war is or is not from day to day, that, if it gets worse, that could be disastrous for the job market. Let's hope that doesn't happen. But at current rate, let's assume there's no big external factor that happens beyond what already has. I think this is going to continue to chip away, and it will pick up pace because we have never seen anything like this before. I've been in the technology world, whether through staffing or prior working for a large IT distributor that I did for years, that I've been around technology my whole career and really have seen, the internet bubble, and then we saw a lot of companies go bust. Then we're going to see a lot of turnover with companies. I mean, there's new ones being created in a way that they never have before because it's so easy to. Yeah. But the pace of evolution is what we're not prepared for. That's what concerns me. So yes, new jobs are and will be created by this, but there's going to be a lot of fallout along the way. And I think it's going to catch the attention to an even more significant degree of Congress, and they're going to try to stop it. But I don't know that
Congress, who has historically been really good to act on new technologies right away, like they're gonna try maybe, but it's funny because all of the things I've seen, half of them barely understand how it works in the first place. So. Yeah,
it's comical, right? When you see them talk about anything that's an advanced technology, you see them weigh in on Bitcoin, for example, right? It's like, wow, they clearly aren't really equipped to do that. When you see them weigh in on AI, same thing. But this new thing that came out, Mythos, if you saw that from Anthropic this week, they're terrified. I saw a report this morning that they're pulling in the heads of a lot of major companies to talk about this because this is a potential cybersecurity threat. advanced way to hack into any system, supposedly. And this is all happening it's at light speed right now.
Yeah, I think that I do agree. I think they're going to try to put in some safeguards or something. They should have already been doing it because it's advancing at such a rate that, yeah, there's by the time that they can pass anything, we'll be on to the next iteration or the iteration after that.
Right. So whether they should or not, put that aside. That's a topic for a different show. But I don't believe that they can. And we can't limit what the U.S. is doing, because then we're going to fall way behind other countries, and that's even worse. So it's going to be. So that's my prediction. We'll leave it there. But between now and the end of the year, I think that this is going to be much more at top of mind than it is today. Although that's growing, right? We see it more in the press every day.
We'll have to bookmark this and revisit it then. Although I suspect we'll probably have more to talk about this subject between then and now.
So let's get into the survey that you mentioned. And so this is our Q2 employee mindset survey. Mm-hmm. We measure a couple of different things. We measure employee satisfaction, where they are. We measure confidence, outlook on the market in the near and long term. And then we measure AI threat. And the overall mindset went down.
Yep.
Was that a surprise to you to see? We just got the results a week ago. It's live on our website. If you want to check it out, just go to fourcornerresources.com, click on surveys. It's the top one, Q2 employee mindset survey. Read through it. It's really interesting stuff. What surprised you about it?
It was not surprising that it went down. I mean, it didn't go down as much as I thought it would, I'll say. It was not surprising that, you could see that people went from saying overall that they're extremely satisfied to just satisfied, that while they're happy with their current job, they're worried about the job market. I mean, if you pay attention to the news, like, none of this should come as any huge shock when you read it and you see, all right, well, people are kind of, you hear the term job hugging. People are clinging on to their current job because they fear the unknown. They fear what's out there right now. And I think that if I had to predict what's next quarter, it'll probably continue that trend as well, unless anything major changes.
So how much? So the survey data, 2 quarters in a row now, has indicated that employees like their jobs. They're happy with the roles that they have. How much of that do you think is because they're happy to have a job when they see so many people who are struggling right now? This is not a good time to find yourself unintentionally unemployed. And we'll talk about why in just a minute. But do you think it's because of the state of the market, or do you think people are genuinely happy where they are? I'd like for it to be the latter. That would be a great.
I'd like for it to be the latter. I think it's the former. I think if we were in a different scenario and the job market was going gangbusters, and I think you would have maybe more people that were. I don't think that we're going to have a lot of people that are saying they're extremely dissatisfied with their job, just because if somebody is, and in the job market is not awful, they're going to probably try and leave and find the job that they can at least tolerate. But I think that number would shift down a lot more, where people are maybe neutral to their job if they have the option. Right now, people are like, well, it's better than nothing. It pays the bills. It gets it's a roof over my head. All that. I'm satisfied. That's kind of my thought.
So there were 2 things that really jumped out at me from this quarter's results. And one is tied to that. And I think it does support the point you just made. Almost 50%, 49.5% of those who took our survey have 4 months or less of savings. So if they lost their job, they would have to find a new one under 4 months to be financially stable. That number jumped up significantly quarter over quarter. So savings are diminishing. Now, coincidentally, the inflation numbers came out today, and I'll just say they're not good. We won't go down that rabbit hole. That's not what this show is about. Go look them up for yourself. CPI was announced today. It's not good. It is. I'll leave it there. So people are having a difficult time saving. No surprise. We're not in a position to see a decline in the job market as a country right now.
I think that's why, people their pay is not going up. Inflation is going up. That's why you're going to see it. I think you're going to continue to see it as long as this trend exists a continual diminishing of the amount of savings that people have, because they while they're saving maybe the same amount, it doesn't go as far. And I think that is maybe going to fall to the back of people's minds while they just try to hold on to their job, while they're just trying to not be out in the job market if they don't want to be.
Absolutely. And again, we'll talk about one of the things making the job market tough in just a second. But the other big point that jumped out at me was what you alluded to earlier, that executives are both the most satisfied right now and afraid of AI. Also, those who are using AI the most are most concerned about how it will impact their jobs. No, those numbers were very clear in the results of this.
I view that as ignorance is bliss, I guess. If you don't know anything about AI, you're like, well, it's not going to be my problem because I don't know anything about it. So the people who are aware and are maybe paying attention to the market, those are the ones who are they're more wary of it. And it's not surprising to me that the executives, they like their job, they're in a good position, they don't want it to be taken away from them. That's why they're the most worried.
Yeah, I find it somewhat amusing that those in executive positions are least worried about losing their jobs, right? Well, why would you think that would be? Could it be, I don't know, because they're the ones that get to decide?
Yeah, they're the ones who decide who's going to lose their job.
So that part is not a surprise. But those being closest to AI, using it the most, are the most concerned about what it means going forward to the job market.
Well, it's no different than even you or I. Like we've used AI pretty heavily, and so we've seen what it can do. So you can extrapolate that out and see, okay, well, if it can do this, it can do that. And it's really, I talk to people who barely use ChatGPT, and they're like, oh, it's pretty cool. Like it can do a lot more than just rewrite your email.
Yeah. We could talk for hours about that. We won't, because this is about jobs.
Yes.
People needing to get jobs. And so I want to touch on, before we go, a couple different reports that came out. One was from LinkedIn. One was from Moss. So the LinkedIn one was talking about the massive number of fake accounts that are on there. Fake recruiters scamming people, trying to get personal information. So let's talk about that first, and then we'll talk about how AI is impacting the job search process and how people are approaching it, because I think that's important, and I think AI could actually help. But these LinkedIn scams are a huge problem, and people are falling for them.
So are you surprised by that there are that many, I guess, fake accounts on there, that these are not real people?
To some degree, I am, and I'm surprised it's working. Let me say that.
Yeah.
So the effort, the attempt, unfortunately, that's the way of the world in many respects. But it's relatively easy to look up someone's history and reputation, and so I'm surprised that people are falling for them, for these scams, the way that they are, when you can do your own research and it doesn't take a lot of time. Look at how long a company's been in business. Look at how long their pages existed. Look at their online reputation. Google them, so to speak. And then you can determine whether it's fake, or if you get an email from a Gmail account versus a business account. Be skeptical. Don't trust those things. Now that we have the data, then this is from LinkedIn. They're the ones saying how many, 83 million fake profiles, and they have reports of 117. They had reports of 117 million scam or spam incidents just in the first half of 2025. 117 million. That's insane.
It's crazy because, well, also it's going to become, unfortunately, I think maybe people just need to become more technologically savvy, because now we've got all these automation tools. Even legitimate companies, they're using these automation tools because they're helpful, because they help move the process along. So the bad actors can kind of wedge themselves in there, act the same way, but not to the same level. And like you said, people are just going to kind of need to be responsible for doing their own research, looking it up, making sure, did I apply to this company? Who is this random person reaching out to me? It's easy, I guess, for us to say, because we see it all the time. I've talked to people, and you'd be surprised the things that people fall for.
Well, so people are applying in mass. So that let's tie these things together. Monster just put out a report saying that the way people are 48% of job seekers are applying to as many jobs as possible instead of being selective. Monster just published that today.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm seeing that right now. Let me talk about that for a second. I have heard all the complaints. I hear it all. I see the numbers. So LinkedIn, I mean, 501 million in job scam losses in 2024 alone. I wanted to get that number out there too. That is crazy. So it's working. It's happening with greater frequency. Candidates, job seekers are being encouraged to apply to as many jobs as possible. And the Monster data indicates that half are. They're just spraying and praying. So I'm recruiting right now. I'm taking a look at resumes for an internal job, which is something I haven't done in a long time. And I see the applications that are coming in. We make it very clear in this job posting that you have to live in Florida. Half the job seekers don't live in Florida. Right off the bat, people are just applying for jobs. And one of the roles that we have requires specific experience in staffing. People don't care. They're just applying. And you see career coaches, and I'm using air quotes, I don't know if they're on the screen, to say that, encouraging people. We see software that boasts you can use it to apply for hundreds of jobs at once. So the snowball effect is just creating an absolute mess in the number of applications that are received for any.
Do you think that's because historically people said, well, it's, HR writes the job description and they write that you need 5 different things. You don't actually need those 5 different things. And they're saying, well, the job description is actually inaccurate. You might as well apply because they don't actually care for those. Those aren't actually requirements.
I think people just say, shoot your shot. It's a numbers game. It's not because no one wins. Candidates do not win. Ultimately, it doesn't matter if you apply, if you're not qualified. And I would argue, I have, and I will continue to, that you should be selective in your approach as a job seeker. It's not it shouldn't be. Don't approach it as a volume game, right? Look, the job market is about supply and demand. Okay, so if you're a generalist, you don't have specific skills. If your skills are the same as many others in the candidate pool, you're going to have to find a way to separate yourself from the pack. And I will argue that you should go above and beyond. You should target certain companies. You should target the individuals in those companies to reach out to directly. Yes, that takes time, but you have to separate yourself somehow, and just being one of 1,000 resumes in a pile is not going to do it.
Well, what do you say to somebody who then says, all right, well, I agree with that. I should apply to I'm going to apply to 6 jobs that I really think I'm really good for. Every one of those 6 jobs within a week is going to have 300 to 400 applicants that the recruiter is then, maybe that it's not no fault to theirs, but they're inundated with all these people. I'm not going to even get reviewed, even though I chose to only apply to those 6. So if you get kind of a catch-22 where it's an arms race between the recruiters trying to use more tools to get to all these people, the candidates then saying, okay, well, I need to then apply to as many jobs just to increase my chances. I don't know a solution to it unless one side kind of backs off. And
yeah, I mean, so that would be like saying I'm going to buy more lottery tickets.
Yeah,
I mean, your chances. I mean, statistically, could it increase your chances? I guess, but your chances will remain so low. It's not going to matter. It's not going to lead to results. So instead, find a way to differentiate yourself. Find a way to stand out. Consider that job, and then try to understand why they would want to hire you, right? Are you uniquely qualified? Hopefully you are, but if you're not, what do you bring to the table that other candidates may not? Recruiters want to find motivated, qualified candidates. So you have to start with that premise in mind.
Yeah.
Recruiters get a bad rap at times, and they shouldn't. I mean, recruiters have one objective. We all have a job to do. Recruiter's job is to find the candidate who's going to be hired for any particular role. Okay, go make that recruiter's job easy for the role that you are applying to. Deliver them a custom message, right? That indicates your interest in the role, why you're qualified, why they should consider you. Reach out to them. Send them a message on LinkedIn. Consider writing that. Now, this is going to be unpopular, and people are going to be very dismissive of this, but I can guarantee that if our recruiters are working on a job and they receive a call from a candidate expressing their interest directly, you're not going to reach the recruiter live. Chances are you might, depending on whether it's a staffing company or a corporate recruiter. If a staffing company is much better chance, you'll probably reach them live. Leave them a voicemail. Tell them who you are. Tell them when you applied. Tell them the job. Make it very easy for them to pull your resume out of the pile and express your interest. It takes a few seconds. You just look up the number. You ask for whoever's recruiting for that job, right? You might be transferred a few times, but it's well worth it. And the reason is because no one does it.
Yeah.
So you're doing what everyone else does, which is just hitting one click apply. You're not going to stand out. So shift the rules in your favor.
I think that what you said, that's really good. Make their life easier. Like, a recruiter wants to expend the least amount of effort to fill the most jobs. So you going that extra mile, making sure that your resume is really good. It matches. That's a use of AI that I tell candidates that's something to do. Don't have it apply to all these jobs. Take a look at the job description. If you match it, make sure that, I didn't have this technology on there. I didn't have this skill on there, but it's on the job description. Have AI help you tailor your resume to these job descriptions so that it's very clear to the recruiter who's looking at you, because they have 100 people, this person is a really good match for the job.
Yeah, find a way in. Do you have a connection? LinkedIn, for all the criticism it deserves, find a way to be connected to that person, right? Do you even have a friend of a friend of a friend? You have to work for it. I said before, it's supply and demand. If you are fortunate enough to have worked yourself into a position where you have a unique skill set, where there are very few people qualified to do the jobs that you'd potentially pursue, then that's entirely different, right? You play by different rules. If you're Tom Brady, you're going to be treated differently than if you're someone who's just hoping to get drafted, right? That's just the way it is. So we're really talking to the people who don't have a unique skill set, who are one of potentially many in a candidate pool. And you see the comments right here, right? This shows it. Peter, if you'll read it, I'm on a small screen. So if you'll read it.
This is from actually, this is from one of the recruiters. The candidates who reach out directly get my attention 100% of the time. The effort alone is usually worth the phone call. Being a easy to work with candidate is an underappreciated skill, and people who show that, hey, I'm going to answer the phone calls, I'm going to give it my actual effort, I'm not going to be dismissive of this. That alone. If I've got a candidate who is, I have to call back constantly and I can't get a hold of him, versus a candidate who is always available and sets up the interview, is ready to go, why would I go with the first one? I can go with the one who, if they've got similar skill sets, I'm going to go with the one that's got the effort, that's putting in the effort, that shows that they really want it. Yeah,
because candidates complain that employers ghost them, that recruiters ghost them. Recruiters get ghosted just as much, if not more. That's just the way it is. And so you said it, make it easy, make yourself accessible, available, and express your interest. And that, you see the comments, right? They think there is problems and there are things that need to be changed. And I just tell, there's nothing that's going to get done by you holding a grudge. Well, the recruiters are bad, so I'm going to have a bad attitude. Be part of the change. Be better than that. That is what I say to do. Yes, maybe there will be some recruiters that are not going to get back to you, that are inundated or whatever. It's people. There's people who are good at their job. There's people who are bad at their job, but you kind of have to learn to not take it personally. You can only affect how you react to the situation. So that's what I've told candidates. You need to, how you approach the situation is the only thing that you can affect. That's a great point. And I said earlier, I want to make the point that AI is helping with this, where we know that people are using AI to help write their resumes. Fine. It does a good job with that. Help it match your skills with the job description. Don't lie, please.
Because it's gonna come out if you're lying. You're just wasting time. So
you're wasting time. And as a candidate, it is not about getting an interview. It's about getting hired. And it's going to come out. So don't try to beat the system, and spend your time on the things that you believe you have a fair and reasonable shot at getting hired for, and then put your effort in that direction. But look, whether we say it or not, what is happening is people are applying in mass. They're not really looking at the job description. So AI is actually doing a wonderful job of separating the candidates. And I saw a comment on LinkedIn yesterday by someone who I respect. a lot complaining that AI is being used in this way. And I didn't respond publicly. I might to this comment, but AI is matching the skills and experience on the resume to what's required on the job description. And if a candidate is applying, like the example I mentioned, people who are disregarding that our job requires them to live in a specific area, they're applying anyway. Our job requires specific experience. They don't have it. They're applying anyway. I'm sorry, it's not reasonable for a human recruiter to take the time to respond to that person and let them know why they weren't qualified. It's just not. There is no company that can have humans doing that.
Hey,
right? Not with the volume.
That's my controversial take is with one click apply. A recruiter does not owe you their time. Sorry, they don't. Like you applying to a job, clicking one button does not then mean that they need to. They will look at your resume, but they do not need to call you and go through it if you are obviously not a fit for the job. It's
just not feasible, right? It's just not. A recruiter would spend all day doing that. So that's where, but AI is able to do that without bias, right? Just matching up the criteria. AI can now reply to candidates and let them know why they're not being advanced for the job. I think that is a amazing use of AI in the recruiting process. And then ultimately allow the candidates who are qualified to spend time with the human recruiters. That's what AI is going to do for us, and the job market's doing it now. It's only going to do that even better going forward. So what technology's created a mess. LinkedIn, Indeed, they've perpetuated this to a significant degree. It's gross. It's not effective. Nobody wins with one-click apply, but it's the world we're in. AI can help solve it for us.
Everybody knows, I think, in this time, like your resume needs to match the job description. Your resume shows that is all we have to go on. So I think it's confusing to me, like you said, when people apply and they're missing, it says you need X, Y, and Z skills. Their resume has none of that, or their resume is missing. Like that's all they're going to go on. So a screening tool that matches some of these things, like that's just base level pre-qualification questions in my mind. Like if you can't do that, then I can't help you.
Yeah, and Bella says it perfectly, right? AI is helping the right candidates get in front of the recruiter, not get buried in thousands of applications. And that's coming from someone who uses this every day and is using it to take better care of candidates and the applicants. I mean, that's what this is doing. So I think we've covered the basis for today, Peter. We've touched on the highlights of the job market. We're going to do this every week.
Yep.
So come back and check in with us. We send a daily newsletter. If you're not already subscribed, Cornering the Job Market, you can get to it through the Four Corner page. Check it out. It gives you all of the headlines that you need to know about what is happening. We update it every morning. We send it out usually by noon, and you'll have within a 3-minute read. That's our goal, that you'll always know what's going on with the job market, from big company announcements, new data as it's available, the jobs reports as they come out, whether we believe them or not, we're going to report on them. And then
it's a nice bite-sized email that it's like you said, it's a quick read and it gives you the highlights.
It's everything you need to know, and then we'll tie it all together at the end of each week. So thanks for joining us today. Anything else before we close, Peter? We cover it all.
I think we got it all. So yeah, we'll see you guys next week.
All right. Have a great weekend. Talk soon.
Bye.